9 a.m. for an hour or two is completely different than going outside at 1 o'clock for an hour. That sun is incredibly intense, and if you can handle the heat at 1 o'clock, at 9 o'clock, you probably would be able to handle it. So make sure that you're getting out and exposing yourselves to the most challenging elements of it, so that way it's a piece of cake. And also, to his point, make sure you're eating healthy, no dairy, no dairy, no dairy, no dairy for breakfast that day, at least.
So one of the other things that I wanted to talk about with COVID is actually about learning and teaching. So for a lot of us, we're being asked to do a lot of video stuff. And if you're an instructor, I can't say this enough. Make sure that when you're spinning and you're teaching that you're not just facing the camera like we are right now and spinning, because a lot of students have a hard time with reversing stuff. So make sure that you're also taking different angles. It could be from a side corner. It could be that you turn around and they see the back of you. It is important for them to see your hands in front of you, you know, and when you turn around, obviously from the back, you're not going to see the hands, but you are going to see the arm motions on how things work. So make sure that you use that. Second, make sure instructors that you aren't teaching counts one way and then videotaping them another way. I know that that has been an issue in the past where we've gotten videos and we're like, well, we heard it was this way, but then you kind of just did it with music and all of a sudden the counts change. Make sure it's our responsibility to make sure the counts are where they're supposed to be. Now, that doesn't mean that it doesn't change. And as performers, you need to be acutely aware of the fact that we may send out a new video with updated counts. Now, I think, again, it's the teacher or instructor's responsibility to put everything out there, do it correctly, and if there are updates, retape, make sure it's clear that this is the new one, and delete the old one. I've had that issue before where people are going back a few days, and I'm like, no, that choreography's even changed. So make sure that you're always up to date with what you're looking at. The second thing is, as a performer, I'm not going to be able to see you because I videotaped this and sent it out for you to learn. So, I mean, how do I see if you're doing things right or wrong? And that's as easy as what we call homework assignments. So what you do is you learn the choreography, you have somebody videotape you, or you put your camera down and you do the flag work, you send it back into us, and then we can critique and we can see what you're doing correctly, and give you the points, for doing a good job. But if there's something that you're doing that's different from the way we taught it, it gives us the opportunity to say, okay, that wrist rotation right here, it was not like this, it was like this instead. It's just the little details. The other thing, and Caity knows that this is this is going to be a fun one. So don't single out a move or question and say, I have a problem with this, and just send it to one of us. The thing is that if you have a question, it's your responsibility to reply to the whole group so that Caity isn't checking her emails on Monday at 2 o'clock and getting your question, at 2:30 getting another guard member's question, which is the same question, followed by 15 minutes later, the same question again. Ask it in the round, that way we can answer the question at one time and we're not having to go back and forth about that.
And to his point too, you don't know if somebody does have the same question as you, and so maybe somebody they feel uncomfortable asking, be that voice also. So not only if you have a question, you can just ask it for clarity for the people who are too shy to ask themselves. Because I've seen people, and I have students who are that shy, who don't want to ask the question, and so they struggle to understand and grasp concepts, but there's other people who are very vocal, outspoken, and will ask the questions for you. But please make sure that you are, when you do address and have a question, it is a reply all type of situation. And then also for instructors, if you're watching videos, homework assignments, take a video of what they're doing incorrectly so you can show them what they're doing incorrectly with the flag and everything so they can see it for themselves, instead of just saying you're doing this with your hand where you need to do it with the flag. Pick up the piece of equipment as well, because that'll help them as much as it can virtually. I'm trying to think of other virtual.
And I know for me, I actually enjoy the questions. Like, I don't want to answer the same question over and over and over. But to me, if I'm seeing somebody that's really engaged and they're asking these questions, and they're good questions, I'm more likely to say, man, that student has a really good attitude, and I love working with them because they're asking such smart questions. I don't really believe that there's dumb questions, except for one. It's when we say, count 2 is here, and then 5 minutes later, you go, where's count 2?
And typically it's when it's been clarified and it's been gone through for at least 15 minutes where each count is, that same 8-count set. We've broken down every single count for 15 minutes, and then 20 minutes later is when that question comes. That's when it's a not good question.
Yeah. But don't be frustrated with learning work online. Again, it's a fairly new thing for all of us. We've been doing it, like I said, for a few years with the Winter Guard stuff in order to get ahead, because our rehearsal schedules are so short. Sometimes it's easier to go ahead and send it out there to the masses to learn. And then when we all got together, we would, reiterate, what the important parts were, like certain checkpoints, how it fits in musically and stuff, which leads me to talk about musicality. Everything you do, when we first started, we talked about performing. Mm-hmm. But there's also the musicality aspect of it, to listening to the soundtrack of what you're doing and making sure you're bringing out the highs and lows in what you're doing. As an instructor and choreographer, it's really important for us to make sure that we're writing that we're not just writing 16 counts because we have to fill in work, okay? Now, I will say, there are moments where there's what they call filler work, and it's usually not the hardest work, but it could be something that's during a transition where you really can't be doing the hard stuff. And that's okay. But think about it. Think about how your body is going into something. If the music, goes down, make sure your body is over dramatic. And like I said, the going back to the breath.
So a visual of that is, let's say the music is up, down. Your work, your choreography, and your performance should reflect that, versus instead of your choreography flatlining, it should match the music and the movement. And when you listen to your song, whatever it is, even for indoor, outdoor, just listen to it. Think about the emotions that you're feeling when you're listening to it, and think about the idea of the show, and just practice listening to the music and feeling it. Feel the music, and it'll help when you start learning the choreography, and you can feel the pulse and feel the beat, and your body's just able to pick that up easier.
There's a group, and I hate that I can't remember what it's called right now, but there's a group on Facebook that basically lets performers, as yourselves, go and do choreography and put it online for basically the world to see. And you get a lot of positive feedback about things like, hey, when you're doing this, try adding this leg in here, or do this leap, or whatever else. And it's a chance for you to do choreography. The thing that I love about it, and I love about this new generation of art people coming out, you guys are fearless, absolutely fearless. I look at these videos online where people are like, I want to do the tricks. The tricks really are not as much about us saying, here's the mechanics of doing it. It's literally your passion to go out there and go, I want to toss that flag up, I want to roll on the ground, and I want to stand up and I want to catch it. Caity can tell you, this is how you roll into the ground and stand back up. I can say that, this is how you break a hip rolling into the ground, but no, but I can teach you the aspect of where to release and how to release, and
I can teach you how to roll underneath your toss, but realistically, you're not going to catch me doing it. I pay for my own health insurance. I can't risk it.
But it goes back to the point of, there's so much out there online right now that you can learn, or you can attempt to do on your own. And that's the fun part of color guard. I love being a performer. I really didn't think outside the box because I was so worried about everything being black and white. Your generation has has the I don't know the word, but you're just so lucky that you can go out there and look at YouTube and look up these videos and attempt all this stuff. So don't just be okay, well, Caity told me to do this quad, I'm going to do this quad. Go out there and experiment. Like, go out there and see what you can do better for that. I've actually done it a few times, and even here at Campbell, where we've done something and I've had the students say, hey, Mr. Barnes, what if we did this? And they'll do the same rifle toss or flag toss that I did, but they'll add something underneath it. Man, that's great. That's what you should be doing. I'm not telling you to tell your instructor how to do choreography, but I am saying if it gets to the point of the season where you guys are all achieving and you think it would be really interesting to do it, ask. There are instructors that are willing to take in information, and I know that we are. There's nothing better than seeing a student take your choreography and make it their own. Especially with, and again, Caity's amazing for this, is doing all the head pops. It just adds so much life to the choreography.
Mm-hmm. Well, for me, it's a confidence thing. Think about when you go out a night on the town or you're dressing up for an event, when your hair is done, your makeup is done, you are feeling confident and you are just feeling like on top of the world. And for me, that's how I feel once I have my hair makeup, my show makeup, and everything done. It happens naturally just because I'm feeling so good with everything. And I think that has a lot to do. Feeling good about the way that everything looks translates into how it's moving and how my body is involved in it as well. So head pops for days.
Yeah, and she brought up a really good point about, and she may have not realized it, but choreography, what you're wearing, the hair, the makeup, and everything else. So for instance, you are working with a guard, you talk to your guard instructor, or the guard instructor decides, I'm gonna have hair up. That's the way our show's gonna be, okay? Changes the choreography. The littlest things like that could change whether you do a hair flip or not. Like there are times when people wanna bring their head forward, bring their hair back and swoop it out of your face. Well, all of a sudden now, you're told that your hair is gonna be like this. It changes the choreography, it changes the effect. So if you know that your hair is gonna be a certain style, and I'm not saying go all out show style, but if you know that your hair is gonna be pulled up during your show, practice like that. If you know that your choreography calls for your hair to be down, practice like that. And I would also say, make sure you find out whether or not you're wearing hair extensions, because some groups wear hair extensions, and again, it changes the choreography. It changes the weight on your head, it changes how you manipulate the moves with your head.
And don't rely only on your costume, your makeup, and your hair to be your performance quality. You should be able to perform whether you're in practice clothes, and you should be able to still, let's say your movement is head down like this, you should be able to do it even if your hair is down, up, pigtails, anything. So don't just rely on this. Still find out the body mechanics of it, so that way you can still achieve it without having to just rely on hair flips.
This is great. We're entering the last about 8 minutes of our presentation. If you don't mind me giving you a couple questions that have been kind of surfing through. And some people might have come in late, so maybe it's a quick rehash as well. One question is, if you can just maybe touch on recruiting during this COVID time, since we can't really kind of gather a bunch of students together. Are there any recommendations that you can make as far as what they can do, a video they can send in, and things that they can look for that they could assemble maybe a beginner into a guard program?
Okay, well, auditions and recruiting, I'm going to do that as two separate things. First of all, recruiting during this time is really hard. Why? Because you're physically not there at the school to put up flyers. So one of the suggestions that I was taught early on was word of mouth through all your students. They can't talk about it enough. If your students are excited about it, they're going to get other students excited about it. But the second aspect of it is there are organizations within your school and with your community. Use your social media to get the word out there as much as you can. But, and this one I thought was really actually a great idea, is our PTAs are still having meetings, you know, whether it's virtual or not. have somebody get up there and talk about guard and about, the excitement of it, like what you get to do, where you get to perform, about the cute costumes, all of that, because that really will bring in some members. And it was proved, I can't remember if it was Illinois, somebody actually started that campaign and their numbers really increased. So that's a good way of recruiting. As far as auditioning is concerned, yes, that becomes the hard part. You can spin. I can tell you as a kid, of course, my parents probably wanted me to play drums more than they wanted me to spin, but it was in my heart. I had to give up the drumsticks and spin. But I mean, I literally was spinning baseball bats,
brooms, mops, Swiffers. Just make sure that you're still outside when you do it. Don't try to do that indoors because your mother will be very unhappy if she comes home to a broken lamp, like mine was. So just make sure you're smart about if you don't have a flag, but you still want to learn the mechanics. Any large stick type of cleaning tool will probably work.
And you can go to Lowe's and you can get, like a pole and stuff like that. The fabric is a little bit different because, again, it's a lightweight fabric. So what I would suggest is go to any one of the band companies and try to see about ordering a flag or a pole, and they'll, you can ask them about weights. But as far as the teaching aspect, and I'll be really quick about this, it goes back to the basics of the videoing and explaining every little detail to a beginner. It is like, here's your flagpole. This is called the bottom stopper. This is called the tab. This is called the top stopper. This is considered a third. You may explain to them how to measure the pole to put the thirds up there. So every little bit of detail you can give a beginner is not enough information.
Great. We have a really diverse audience here, from high school students, college, and a handful of teachers as well that are on the chat. One question came about is there a difference between, and this could be in quality and in price, or should it be a difference between purchasing flags, kind of stock, I guess, from a catalog, or getting someone to make them for you? Is there a difference in the quality that the students are going to use? Just very quick.
So if there's handmade, they might be a little bit easier to rip. They're a lot harder to replace. And the resale value of those as well, it's harder to resell those if you want to make some money, bring some money back into your band program. And I remember when I was in high school, we had spray painted flags, and those were nearly impossible to spin. So it adds a different element of challenges when you're using different weights of fabric and you're putting them all on the same big piece.
As well, the more seams that you have, the heavier the flag is, and there's a little bit more chance of having a drag in the flag.
Great. And you had mentioned a couple times, and again, this is just the nomenclature of what we're working with. Do you have any recommendations for model groups to look at? I think, Dwayne, you had mentioned a website that has, people giving demonstrations and stuff. Are there any particular groups that you can mention? And I can even write the names of it in the chat as you mention them. For, as a musician, trumpet player, I can name my list of trumpet players for my students. Do you have a list of groups that teachers can use as models, especially if they can't get together and they need to put a package together?
Yes, well, I think the group that I was talking about is called Color Guard Quarantine, that you should be able to find on Facebook. Like I said, you can see people's different choreography. YouTube is a fantastic model for learning stuff. Just be really careful because there's a lot of good videos out there and bad videos.
I would suggest when you go into YouTube, type in WGI finals and whatever year that you want to look up. Like the most recent years would probably be better to be more up to date on the styles that are currently out right now. So I would do WGI finals 2019, 2018, and it'll have the 10, 15 best guards, whether it's high school, independent, or even world-class guards. Those are great models to look at just in terms of performance. And that would be where I'd start if I wanted to learn how to be a great performer.
And it doesn't hurt to look up VOA videos because you're looking at some of the top bands in the country, they're getting it right. So that was probably where I would lean you towards.
Mm-hmm. And then WGI, if you go on to WGI.org and into their shop, they have a bunch of DVDs and videos that are dance basics, dance across the floors, and lots of basic DVDs that I've looked at that look really helpful for a beginner or someone who's even intermediate or advanced who just wants to learn some new stuff too. They have tricks that you can learn, and they've really broken it down, and they've had this even before COVID. So their videos are really high quality, and I've learned a lot from them as well.
Good. Actually, if you don't mind me adding one more, one of my resources, both for athletic bands and such, is Flow Sports. And they have a lot of recordings, and actually they have a live radio that, you know, is in my ears all the time on my way home. So Dwayne, Caity, thank you so much for this session. I just want to let everybody know that Dwayne and Caity will also have a session on Friday at 10 o'clock as well. It's called Color Guard Short Routines for Flag and Rifle. And they will have a separate link that I just sent in the chat. And the reason why we're going to have a separate link is if they're teaching these routines and they feel they need to go over 45 minutes, this will be an indefinite link for them to work with people online. So with that said, it's 10:50.